Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and this week looks rough. And it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. It's hard not to look at the Hot 100 right now and think that after a week of rule changes, what we're seeing here is a little surreal. For all intents and purposes, it was a normal week, certainly not as turbulent as weeks past and with established trends in motion, but the devil's in the details here. Outside of a swath of country that if I had said a year ago the most notable debuts this week are a contemporary Christian song alongside multiple new entries from Tame Impala, and I'm not sure at first listen what's worse, that would be alarming. And I don't have an easy answer for it either. Trends are easy to measure from the top of the charts, but when you get deeper in alongside the rule changes, there's just too much static to pin down what's really going on. Speaking of which, our top 10, where I guess I shouldn't be surprised that The Fate of Ophelia by Taylor Swift is holding strong at number 1, given how dominant it is on sales and streaming and surging on the radio. But while I felt a little removed from Taylor Swift last week in a flurry of reviews and coming back from my honeymoon, with the buzz and the backlash to the backlash seeming to settle quickly for the life of a showgirl, it's a little striking how little I've thought about this song or even seen much discourse since then. Now granted, I also haven't thought that much about K-pop Demon Hunters, even as Golden comfortably rests at number 2, chasing on streaming and sales and actually winning the airplay margin, but I've also been disconnected from that whole phenomenon for months now. I kind of expect it. Then right behind it we got Ordinary by Alex Warren, somehow still here at number 3 because a good streaming revival alongside Radio Dominus, but then we got 3 more songs from Taylor Swift, might as well chalk that up to the streaming. Opalite at number 4, Elizabeth Taylor at number 5, and for some baffling reason, Father Figure at number 6. But our last 4 songs are not from Taylor, and they're quite the odd collection, so let's start off with 2 good tracks from unlikely sources. Daisies by Justin Bieber at number 7. It's quietly become a radio monster, even as streaming appears to be completely ignoring it. And The Man I Need by Olivia Dean at number 8, which is racing up the streaming charts while maintaining decent sales and some radio growth. I smell a long chart run ahead, assuming she can get ahead of a likely Wicked for Good album bomb and all the holiday music. But it's not all good news. I Got Better by Morgan Wallen's at number 9, a ton of radio, but it's probably reached its peak there and it's ebbing away. And then Mutt by Leon Thomas at number 10, probably with the remix with Chris Brown. It's been long in coming, but it's been in the top 20 for months courtesy of radio, but it also might be finally out of gas there. I put these up this high largely as a factor of Taylor Swift fading rather than any individual strength. Speaking of which, let's talk about our losers and dropouts, where we're absolutely seeing the effect of those new recurrency rules in that latter group. Both Revolving Door and Just Keep Watching by Tate McRae, 20 Cigarettes by Morgan Wallen, and Which One by Drake and Central C. That last one just got muscled off the charts entirely and a little early, not that I'm complaining. I still wish that Billboard was a lot more clear on who they're giving a pass on this recurrency. Both Shaboozey and Jelly Roll's Amen and Billie Eilish's Wildflower, they should be gone by now, unless they're playing margins games on the radio. Might as well chronicle when they break their own rules so we can at least point and laugh at some of the hypocrisy. It's sad laughter, but it counts. Anyway, there weren't that many losers this week either. Honey is the only Taylor Swift song actively falling down to 26, but it was not a great week for Jelly Roll as Heart of Stone fell down to 70 and Holy Water with Marshmello hit 99. Outside those, Airtime by Cardi B hit 84 as expected. Bar None by Jordan Davis had the expected Nashville radio let it get this high. Now let's pull all the support all at once and fell out of the top 40 down to 72. And Last One to Know by Gavin Adcock slid to 65. I'd like to think it's because once you look past the antics, the music's not interesting, but I don't think any of us are that lucky. And you want proof of that? Let's take a look at our returns and gains, where of course we not only get Jason Aldean back with How Far Does a Goodbye Go at 90, we also see Tucker Wetmore with 321 at 94. I don't recall reviewing the song, but it's Tucker Wetmore. If I said Morgan Wallen ripoff and moved on, would any of you notice? or care otherwise. The one net positive I see is Nice to Each Other by Olivia Dean returning and making a nice push at 88. And when we get to her gains, I was very happy to see a nice little boost for The Subway by Chappell Roan up to 68. The rest of our gains, though, as expected after a midweek debut, Pixelated Kisses by Joji surged up to 38. And thanks to some album impact and probably some residual Halloween attention, Dracula by Tame Impala rose to 33. But someone please explain why It Depends by Chris Brown and Bryson Tiller's now at 16. I mean, I don't need to say much. The radio's not getting rid of Chris Brown. It's been its crutch for well over 15 years now. But he saw a resurgence in both streaming and sales this week too. Anyway, getting into our new arrivals here, where I don't know what the hell to do with some of these. For starters, number 100, 3 AM by Loe Shimmy and Don Toliver.
Call me whenever you're on. Let me come through it, come do it in here. I'm going. Okay, and I love how you doing it. Take it down each time I'm screwing it. Okay, and I'm loving your face. Fuck you good, put you in your place.
It's not a good sign when I gotta go search through my written archives on my website to find you from a previous Billboard Breakdown episode, and that's exactly what I had to do with Loe Shimmy here, continuing his journey by teaming up with an artist more interesting than him to get on. Brent Faiyaz before, Don Toliver now. And it might have been a uniquely bad decision this time, because Don Toliver's more nasal, auto-tuned drawl, it might not be doing that much by his standards, but it's more distinct in catching the hook, and also just similar enough to Loe Shimmy to highlight how he just doesn't have that same presence. It's not like the rest of the song is doing much either. It barely runs over 2 minutes with one hook and a single verse, and while the watery mix alongside the firmer bass and the faint trap skitter, it's probably the best part of the track for being incredibly well produced, mixed, and mastered, but the content's still the same druggy, disinterested sex jam amidst gangland flexing and brand names, which just does not register for me. Give me some reason to actually care beyond Don Toliver saying he's putting women in their place after having sex with them, and Loe Shimmy saying he turned down millions from Sony. Given that he's on Gamma, where the rumor is that that whole label's backed by Drake behind the scenes, might not be the flex he thinks it is. Anyway, it's forgettable Drek. Next, number 95, Heavens to Betsy by Jackson Dean.
Watching over you, but I will until I see you again. Now if you left me.
Okay, the last time I talked about Jackson Dean was back in 2022, where my general observation is that there was some promising snarl and edge let down by his remarkably anonymous delivery. Then I promptly forgot he existed. So now we got a song with a painfully dated title that was first premiered back in 2023, put on record in 2024, is now only charting now. And you know what, credit to him, it's certainly a lot more interesting than that other song. Described as a track from a late father in heaven down to his younger daughter, where he pleads for her forgiveness and promises to watch over her from beyond the grave if she would let him. Now that could be a really compelling idea for a song, as is the galloping, fast-paced percussion and damn near anthemic swell coming out of the guitars, including a really flashy solo, and a much more expansive mix to accentuate that heavenly feel. But it feels like those two ideas belong in two different songs. It produces this odd panicked urgency that doesn't really match the sentiment of the plea. That sort of grievance doesn't heal quickly, especially by the implied alcohol abuse. The song's closing ambiguity at least kind of gets that. And the more you think about this idea at its core, the less it comes together. I actually like the tangible surprise at Jackson Dean's character getting close to paradise, but the desperate hope that his daughter will let him watch over her from beyond the grave until she passes on at some point, and that could well be decades in the future. Well, okay, if he is on the other side, he can always be watching her. It's not like St. Peter's got a stopwatch counting down until he makes amends and she forgives him. And if you think I'm overthinking all this, oh, well, okay, you're probably right, but when you have a few inspired ideas and the fusion isn't quite meshing, where Jackson Dean's husky delivery isn't the most striking, but it's at least passable, I'm trying to parse why it's not landing. I don't want to say it's playing the very obvious Christian music card without thinking through all the implications, but it should be better than it is. It's more weird than bad, but I'm willing to call it an intriguing misfire that in some context just might work. Number 92, Dusty Bibles by Josiah Queen.
Feel this way. We walk with our eyes closed, blindly in blindfolds, and I'm done with those idols and dusty Bibles.
Now, on the topic of Christian contemporary music occupying more space on the Hot 100 than it needs to, Josiah Queen has been a real rising star in that scene for a couple of years now. A fresh-faced white boy born after 9/11 who's run up the charts in that space, and who I was most familiar with thanks to a new credit on a new Forrest Frank song called Jesus is Coming Back Soon. Hey, evangelicals, the whole apocalypse cult shit, it's a bad excuse to not care about the rest of the world, and only God knows when any rapture's coming. Stop bastardizing the Gospels, get your heads out of your asses, remember the messages of compassion, charity, and mercy, and for the Lord's sake, keep your bad music somewhere else. And when I say bad music, I mean the gutless and brainless version of the Lumineers, playing to a lot of canned stomp clap music cliches, where the acoustics and banjo sound weirdly airless, and Queen is really stretching out of his vocal range. He's trying to convey more urgency and power, and he just sounds constipated. And the lyrics are bad. We got dust on our Bibles, brand new iPhones. It's a sort of forced rhyme and eye-rolling sentiment that's attempting to express a return to faith and Christian values as he longs for the good old days of 2017, when he was 14, the first administration of the treasonous POS in chief down south, where the pop charts were also a misshapen transitional miasma with a mediocre Taylor Swift album. It's not like there was any greater religious sentiment then. You were just a teenager. Your life was simpler. I get that modern doom scrolling sucks, and if you did lose a friend somewhere along the way, that could make for an actual tangible emotional centerpiece. But we don't get into it, and the lack of any introspection beyond the fault of any of it being, we have fallen from God's grace because of the iPhone. It just feels so adolescent and basic. It's just embarrassing. If Jax was ranting badly about Victoria's Secret in 2022, this is the same whinging and the same sentiments from the other side of the aisle, with way fewer excuses to be this ignorant. In other words, it sucks. Number 91, Loser by Tame Impala.
Tear my heart out. I'm a tragedy. Trying to figure this whole mess out.
A colleague of mine recently made the observation that Tame Impala and Kevin Parker in particular have been ribbed for selling out since most people knew who they were. And considering I was there when they changed the sound for Currents, that's actually about half true. But there's a difference between crossing into these semi-popular indie spaces where you get covered by Rihanna out of nowhere on an album track, and then charting yourself after co-writing for Dua Lipa. And full disclosure, Deadbeat is easily Tame Impala's worst album, probably best considered as a solo Kevin Parker electronic project than anything under that larger name, with this being the second single, and truthfully, it was the moment I knew I wanted to bail out of the album for good when I first listened to it. The soupy guitar leads around the lead riff, the cheap analog synths, and the brittle percussion holding onto a groove that's painfully stiff and devoid of atmosphere, Parker's gutless falsetto, and trying to prostrate himself in front of some girl as a total fuck-up in order to win her back. And man, I thought it was bad when Glass Animals was trying to sell this a couple of years ago. Heat Waves is still terrible, I'm standing on that, but this is somehow even worse, with a considerably weaker hook. At least when Beck made a song with this title in the 90s, there was some shambling bite, some unique lyricism, some acrid sarcasm, and genuine weirdness that could suck you in. So yeah, this sucks a lot too. And you know what? While we're here, number 56, My Old Ways by Tame Impala.
Back into my old ways again. Back into my old ways again.
The opening track from that new album, and okay, to Kevin Parker's credit, I've been somewhat forgiving of his songs where you see someone stumble back into old bad habits. The closing track from Currents, New Person, Same Old Mistakes, utterly nails that vibe, and it's one of my favorites in their entire catalog. But that song had a saturated, psychedelic, and distinctly melancholic synth palette, not a cycling and chintzy sounding piano before the stock house beat drops in with this brittle, bubbling knock and fizzy percussion, where even when the eerie, faux darkwave tones start coming in, they don't have nearly the atmosphere in order to sell it, even if the warbling outro passage was not half bad. And the big culprit there, as always, it's Kevin Parker. Between the reedy overdubs and his, let's call it limited songwriting, where he's delivering the bluntest possible version of this arc, it's a problem. The point of Tame Impala is that you could get sucked into the atmosphere and largely ignore a lot of the clunky, self-pitying lyrics, or they just kind of got amplified, simplified there, amplified by the larger experience. But when you suck all that out, it feels like the Flanderized version of itself. Maybe a little bit better than Loser, but still painfully mediocre. It really sucks that this is the version of Tame Impala we're seeing on the Hot 100. Those of us who actually remember the 2010s, yeah, we deserve better. Number 49, Graveyard Whistling by Morgan Wallen.
It can't hurt you. And when you let it leave, it can't hurt you.
Okay, you're gonna have to follow with me on this one. This is not an original song from Morgan Wallen, but a cover from his sessions at Abbey Road of a song from the self-titled debut album from Nothing But Thieves, an English alt-rock group that I don't particularly like. For everyone's benefit, I largely avoided covering them after reviewing Broken Machines in 2017. I thought they were drab and mediocre. A quick re-listen to songs I liked most at the time. My thoughts have not changed. And apparently, that was widely considered their best project. Yikes. But going back to their version of Graveyard Whistling, I could see what would have attracted Morgan Wallen to this. The watery guitars, the husky vocals, sapped of any tighter impact by mushy grayscale percussion, sapped of any tighter impact by mushy grayscale production. So I was actually a bit startled he tries to give it a little bit more warmth and organic muscle amidst the reverb, including punching up the first chorus, especially by the second verse. Now he doesn't exactly have the register to match the frontman Connor Mason, and I'm a little bit mixed on the choice to make the first hook as loud as he does. It kind of dampens the effect of the gradual crescendo, but I think it's the lyrics that Wallen makes work for him the most. Given his own, let's call it tempestuous relationship with religion, his depressed rejection of Pascal's wager actually has some bite, especially as he's not getting away from that existential emptiness along the way. But at the same time, I've always had the sense that the edginess of Nothing But Thieves was more impressed with themselves for going there than actually following through and saying something that's truly transgressive. So again, not that impressive. Still, better cover than I expected. Joey Boy executes the production pretty well. It's certainly better than a lot of Morgan Wallen's last album. I'll give him that. And finally, number 39, Choosin', Texas by Ella Langley.
Cowboy always finds a way to leave, drinking Jack all by myself. He's choosing Texas, I can tell.
I wish I had more faith that ending this week with Ella Langley would result in the easy best song. Don't get me wrong, I've liked the majority of crossover singles she's had, especially with Riley Green. Hell at Night with Big X the Plug, it's still a dud, but hey, she tried. But I heard Hungover in 2024, and my general impression of the album is that she's very good, but not yet consistently great. Granted, I like seeing a co-write with Miranda Lambert, along with some audible backing vocals from her, and with this, yeah, it really does feel like all my thoughts were pretty much confirmed here. It's pretty good, maybe not great. Langley sounds resigned and sad because her ex chose a girl from Texas over her. She didn't even think she had much of a shot, so she's drinking cheap bad whiskey and commiserating, with some good references to Texas country music in order to drive it home. And I like how Miranda Lambert's softer touches in the backing vocals, as someone actually from Texas, kind of drives home that misery. I just wish I liked the production a little bit more. It's generally organic, with the guitars evoking some watery 1980s texture alongside the pedal steel. It sounds a little runny around the edges of the groove, and that kind of fits this sort of barroom tear in your drink song. But even with those textures, the mastering still feels a little sloppier than you would like. A bit blockier and clunkier around the drums and that vocal lead. It's been a persistent issue. So yeah, it is a good song. I'm happy it's performing well, but I want to hear that next level from her that made Don't Mind If I Do so special. She's real close. Let's see what happens. And yeah, that's the week. Oh, thank God for Ella Langley in Choosin, Texas, because the rest of this is just a mess. I think the worst is actually going to be a tie, though. Loser by Tame Impala, Dusty Bibles by Josiah Queen. I really can't choose which of them I think is worse. Really bad sign that either of them are here at all. Next week, feels like the Hot 100 is headed for a brief slowdown. I don't really expect any albums to make any measurable impact, let's say like Demi Lovato. We will have to see. But until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.